Hello everybody, welcome back to Wednesday Fitness. So today I'm going to share with you guys 3 recipes. I'm going to be making a homemade dressing that is great for, potlucks or events, and making it nut friendly and also keeping it vegan. And I'll be sharing with you 2 of my simple recipes basically for spaghetti. I've got a tomato Fretto and also trying to keep it nut free, which is challenging, especially for people who are have a lot of allergies, right? So this is one that I'm going to give a try. I will admit that this is going to be my first time doing it, but hopefully it works. So one of the big things that you definitely are going to need is a big pot. And I know you're going to be thinking, that's a kind of small pot. It's actually a medium pot. And then, of course, I have my big old wok, which you'll see here in a minute once I get to frying up the veggies and everything. And that's what I use, because that wok is my measurement of it, making sure it fits into this huge foil container for when I am bulk cooking. And I know I got a lot of people who go, oh my gosh, how do you know how many ingredients to be able to put into this? That honestly depends on what your crowd size is going to be. But generally, because if it's potluck, then I think 1 or 2 trays is pretty good, especially if you are having more and more people contribute to it, right? So let's go ahead and get started and get into the kitchen, and I'll show you guys what I'm making. First things first is to boil our water and to get the pasta ready while we're preparing for the rest of our sauces. And while the pasta was cooking, I went ahead and chopped up all of my onions and my garlic, because those were the 2 staple things that I needed for every single sauce that I was making. So it made life really easy once they were done. This made the process in cooking all the sauces really easy. So let's get to the wok and start cooking. I personally ended up using avocado oil. The only oil change I did was when I cooked my 3rd sauce, which I didn't mention in my intro because that came later since I had so many ingredients left. Once I sauteed the garlic and salt in the oil, I added some fresh basil from my garden, and then I mixed that all up and added some of the chopped onions. As I said, I portioned these out. And I did have quite a few extras, so I ended up using it for something else. And then I added some sun-dried tomatoes. Now for me, I don't like sun-dried tomatoes so much when they're so chewy. And to prevent that, I ended up using some of the spaghetti water to add to the wok, so that way it rehydrates them a little bit more. Now it's really up to you, it depends on your kind of flavor, but for my tomato Fretto, I really kind of like to have things a little bit less chewy. After that, I'd added 2 cans of coconut milk. And honestly, I have never used coconut milk for making my tomato Fretto, but for those who have like nut allergies, I decided that this would be a good opportunity to try my hand at it. And honestly, I had to add quite a bit of nutritional yeast to this to kind of have it more of that sort of buttery, cheesy flavor. And of course, I added my Italian seasoning to it as well. And actually, that really made a huge difference. Adding in the Italian and also the nutritional yeast, it was more about, I would say, almost between a half a cup to almost a full cup of it. And honestly, it just really depends on your take on it. And of course, you have to have at least a can of, or a jar of your favorite tomato sauce to have that tomato Fretto look to it. And that was pretty much it. It was really simple and easy, and honestly it came out super delicious, and everyone that had it, and it actually kept really well since I had to store this in the fridge, and I was afraid that if I put it through the oven it might dry out, but it wasn't dried out actually at all. It was really nice and moist and delicious. And now to our second dish. So again, that olive oil and the onions and the garlic all mixed in together to create this next one. This is just your regular tomato base marinara sauce. I ended up using mushrooms because I had some left over and I didn't want it to go bad. So I had them chopped up and thrown in there, and then I went ahead and added my tomato sauce, and that was pretty much it. It was really basic, and honestly too, I had to thin this out because this was a really thick tomato sauce, and so I just added in with the spaghetti water as well, and that was it. It was super easy. Now the next part of this, I would say, was challenging because it was overflowing, and like I said, this is bulk cooking, and this turned out to be super simple and easy, and I love that it was still very creamy despite the fact that it was in the fridge the night before, and then we were putting it in the oven to reheat, and it turned out perfect. And honestly, when bulk cooking, this is one of the methods I ended up having to use to be able to coat everything, which I think really helped maintain the flavor throughout when you are kind of serving it for, say, the next day. So hopefully that was helpful. And of course, our third one, which is one of my favorites, I used the rest of the garlic that I didn't use for this dish, and I added in some salt, and I put in some capers. Now, if you're a caper lover, great. I honestly have not cooked with capers very much, and I've only been just trying it out this year, and I will have to say I love capers. I've had them in dishes before, but I wasn't really certain on how else they pair and how good they would really taste in this dish, and I sort of honestly made it up on my way. And this is probably one of my favorite spaghetti dish, honestly, I just loved this. So I added actually 2 lemons to this dish, and all it required was just 4 simple ingredients: capers, oil, garlic, and salt, and that was it. And this by far had the most delectable flavor I could even imagine. It was just so good. I probably would have added more capers to this, but I didn't want to overdo it because I didn't know if people really like capers or not. So I didn't overdo it for this dish. But I will say, adding in the vegan Parmesan and also the nutritional yeast was an absolute hit. I would have to say I loved it the best with the nutritional yeast on top. It was so good. So if I was to do this again, I'd probably add a little bit more capers to it, just for personal preference. But I wouldn't change a thing in terms of the ingredients. I hope you guys had a good time watching some of these 3. And now we're on to our salad, guys. I promise you, we are on with all of these recipes. This one, I decided to make a Asian dressing for this, and it's just an Asian salad that I layered. So I always put the wet ingredients at the bottom. As you guys know, I kind of follow that because then that way your greens don't get so soggy. And because this was bulk cooking, and I do all my cooking the day before, especially for the event that I had, I was not going to have time to prepare all of this. This literally took the whole day. So making this dressing, guys, all of the ingredients will be in the bottom, but I just kind of share, the experience of putting it together. This one, I actually had to make a double portion than what I have here because obviously I had 2 portions. So it's kind of important that when you're doing bulk cooking, make sure that you really know how much you want to, make. And I really am not the type of person who likes to waste anything. I try my best not to waste food because, hey, we know, guys, right now the economy, it's expensive, and I always try to make everything as good as I can. So this one was actually one of my favorite dressings, and I got inspired by obviously looking it up online, and I wanted something that had sesame, and I wanted it to be simple and easy and homemade. Usually I do creamy sauces, which I like to do with veggies if I have the time, but I didn't have all of my ingredients, so I decided to do it more of a Asian, feel. Even though despite the fact that I was bringing spaghetti, I know they didn't pair, but it was okay because it was a potluck and there was a ton of different things that people brought anyways, so it was great. And this one honestly was one of my favorites. The flavor was amazing with this, and it kept really well the very next day, which was awesome. So basically I just mixed the sauces at the bottom, and then I put all of my, fresh ingredients on top, so that way we didn't have them wilting. And this made it so much easier. So when I was preparing it, all I had to do was just sort of mix everything together and it was done. And the salad was well mixed the next day, and it made it so much easier. And so that's it, guys. Bulk cooking is definitely not for the faint of heart. It is a definite challenge. And so this is what our potluck looked like. There, as you can see, there was plenty. We were feeding over 100 people, and it was for one of the homeless shelters. So they definitely had a feast. And when I was talking to them, they were saying that it was the best food that they had ever had. And I'm telling you guys, with everything that was there, I can definitely see why. And actually, someone ended up making spaghetti too. So there was quite an abundance of spaghetti, and it did not go to waste. There were plenty of people eating it, and most of the dishes went, which was awesome. And this is a way in which we can give back. And just remember, even if you don't have a lot, a little goes a long way. So I hope that encourages you. May you live, thrive, and be healthy. Take care. Bye.